I am so honored. I know that sounds like a cliche, but I really am excited having been into attachment research and practice for so long to see now how it's taking off, even in the mainstream social media, which sparks a lot of our conversation. But I think one of the difficulties of it also is that it's not completely understood. And then you get people who are really great on camera and have these like exotic fancy accents and good influencers saying things that are factually incorrect. And that's the part, that I'm excited to talk about. Well,
So
thank you.
I guess for me, when I was in graduate school, learned about attachment, like it spoke deeply to everything I'd been through, kind of gave
Yeah.
me explanations to things that I didn't have the answers to.
Mhm.
And it actually encouraged me to get on the dance floor a little bit and share. And I bought in. There was something about it to me that just explained things, gave me more information, and actually gave me permission to take some risk of vulnerability. And it paid off well for me. I think there was already a part of me because of so much grief and loneliness of my childhood, my life, that I was waiting for some answers. Like, why do I feel that I want to be connected to people, but don't really know how or don't know why I feel this? And so when I learned about attachment science, I drank the Kool Aid entered, and it just
Mhm.
stayed.
So you kind of came in from the clinical route first. Like you were learning about attachment, but also something to do with it. In my master's, we didn't really talk much about EFT. We kind of glossed over it a little bit, but I was hardcore systems theory. Not until my doctoral degree, I did my thesis from an attachment theory framework. And conceptually, it made so much sense. But then to get in and start training more in EFT, I thought, oh, well, I like this intellectually, but I don't want to do any of that. No, thank you.
Right.
But I didn't feel ready or that I would be a very competent EFT therapist because I was so high on avoidance. And that's one of the great things about systems theory is there's not necessarily that vulnerability piece that comes up on the part of the therapist. But here
Yes,
we are.
yes. And we are all on our journey. And I will give you some kudos though. I did see a clip of you and you did some beautiful EFT. You are definitely an engaged withdrawer in the room.
I try.
This is my second career, and I had a group of men that entered my life. And the interesting thing about that was they were helping me, and I didn't understand why they were helping me. And they taught me, hey, the more that you help, the better you're going to get. This is all about serving, all these types of things. So I experienced it before realized what I experienced. Through that experience, I had lived attachment security. I had found people that were there in ways that I had never had before. And I was very guarded at first, like, what do they want? What are you getting out of this kind of thing? And they were
Yeah.
just like, bro, you don't get it yet. You'll start to see how this thing works.
Well, that was going to be my question is because you've described in the past that you tend to be more of a withdrawer, which
Yeah.
high avoidance. And the thing I think that people don't realize is that the closeness, even if it's secure attachment, when you're not used to it and you're not aware of it, is really uncomfortable. So, what was it about this group of men that allowed them to come closer to you and you were able and willing to accept?
Another great question. In the sense of for a withdrawal, there was lots of safety and security, and this is what I teach people now. There was lots of vulnerability shared with me that I wasn't used to. These people opened up in ways and shared about like different faults or different shortcomings and things that they had been through in their life and were open about it. I had hid everything in my life. I wasn't going to tell you anything. Right. So but they offered little, what I would call offerings of vulnerability and showed that to me. And through that, I think my body opened up a little bit to say, wow, there's something different about this. There's something unique. And okay, I'm willing to try this a little bit. I'll see how this lands. I'll give it a little try and, started opening up and I saw the benefit in it. So I think for me, as I saw the benefits of it, more of me opened up, you know,
Okay.
and now it's just when I'm overwhelmed, I may slide back into those more avoidant stances. And that's just the way that that I cope, it's to kind of shut everything down. but I definitely feel very engaged, even in the midst of conflict, which typically I wouldn't before.
You mentioned, being more of disorganized, which, in the research, we call it fearful. So being
Hmm.
high anxiety and avoidance. And I learned so much from you to be able to empathize with that high anxiety because it's still to this day, being one who is high on avoidance and very low on anxiety, it is definitely difficult still. So
No,
I
it is.
yeah, and I think that so often people who are, whether it's avoidant, mostly avoidant, we're working toward growth, this attachment focused growth, and we want to do those things. We will give little nuggets to people. And someone who is high on anxiety are often the worst at just overlooking that and not recognize the value
Mm,
of someone who is avoidant sharing, right? Like those nuggets.
yeah.
It's like
It, and
that's
it's
not
so true. It is so true. Like both of us had done so much supervision over the several years as professors and clinicians. And I'll hear this even at trainings. Oh, they just quite didn't open up. And I'm sitting there going, like, there was tears in their eyes. They were in their body. Like it was all there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did it not get expressed in a way that it hit your system? Were you able to actually like organize it and be with it because you don't express in that way? Just your presence alone and acknowledging the pieces of vulnerability
Mhm.
just creates so much space. We're probably attuned to withdraw our energy though as well, but it is interesting when you say like, wow, sometimes it's just missed.
I think that's an important distinction too, because so many partners that tend to be, higher on anxiety, they'll argue, I'm showing all this vulnerability. And that isn't helpful at all. And I think it's really important that you highlight there were small nuggets that I could test out. And, is this safe to experience their vulnerability? Can I express my vulnerability in small microdoses? And how do they respond to that?
Yeah. Which led to some of my research, attachment adaptation process model. I
Mm,
called it testing the waters, but that's what they do. They like tiptoe into the water to like see how things are going. A lot of people have spidey senses. You pay attention to folks and the way that they handle things when we share, right? And I
mhm,
think for me, I just didn't have a lot of presence growing up. I didn't have space for that,
mhm,
right? I had my role, I had things I was supposed to do. So now, fortunately, I've been able to pick and choose people that have presence, right? That create space. But a withdrawer is going to need a lot of space. Yeah. A wild thing about this, and I've shared this with you personally. My boy is 16 now. When I was younger, I definitely had some pursuing tendencies, those push, like I'd want to get close and then I'd want you to get too close. But what's interesting about him, though, is that he starts to open up and I feel the pursuer energy come out in me. And he's like, I overwhelm and he's like, Dad, that's enough, bro.
mhm,
Please stop. And it took me some time to say, I completely get it. I'm here when you want to talk. And
mhm.
it's wild to watch him now over time that he just disclosed something really heavy. And I told my wife, "Isn't that wild? Like, the more space we gave him, the more he just opened up about something organically." It's just interesting as you come in and you learn so much about attachment growth and security and being present to be attuned to folks, even our children, our spouses. You let me know when you want to come back and I'm here. Yeah, I want to be here with you on that. And thank you
Mhm.
for sharing what you did.
Yeah, yeah, that meant a lot to me, like, any acknowledgement of it being safe. I
I know you teach a class on this and we discussed it so much self for the therapist
yeah,
work that comes up when you're doing attachment focused work. Our activation strategies happen in live time.
mhm,
As somebody escalates, we may withdraw. As somebody withdraws, we may escalate. So
mhm.
attunement is just key. Attunement to self, attunement to others, attunement to the cycle. There's so much grounding that has to occur.
I feel like we should kind of clarify too that we use terms interchangeably, which took me forever the light bulb to go off in what was happening that pursuer is a behavior, it's a response that generally is associated with attachment anxiety,
Mhm.
whereas withdraw is the behavior associated generally with, high avoidance.
Yeah.
But, you know, people with high avoidance can sometimes pursue. People with high anxiety can sometimes withdraw.
And the key here too is for people to understand true attachment security is able to move in and out of those very pliably. When do we approach in these moments where we need to attune and come close, and when do we need to be able to step back and to self-regulate and to be okay in our own brain and our own bodies, you
Mhm.
know? So that's really the key of attachment focused growth, in my opinion.